Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Podcast. Rolling along with these NBA futures. Got Kareem K with me, as we have already done, three? No, yeah, we're done with the East now. So we're moving on to the West. We're going to be throwing the Pacific Division at you. Some bets that we like in here and some stuff that we're still just sort of noodling on, right? Like, I think we're still just going to have a discussion about some stuff rather than offer too many definitive bets, would you say?
Yeah, no, this is a division that is, I think, probably the most interesting as far as like championship contenders. Like right. Every one of these teams, with the exception of Sacramento, probably, who's still a very good team, has championship aspirations, and it'll be fun to talk about them. And go through.
Yeah, if you go to Sacramento right now, there's plenty of people that would tell you they have championship aspirations. I love that fan base, though. They're like a non-obnoxious Knicks fan base. Like, they're just like, they love their team and they're ready for like just anything good. They're still
I'll
really
be honest
easy to
with you, man.
please.
I don't know if I've ever talked to a Sacramento Kings fan. Like, I know they exist. I know they pack the gym and light the beam, but like, I've never been walking down the street and been like, oh, like, you're wearing a De'Aaron Fox jersey. Like, that shit just doesn't really happen around here. I don't know. Or like anywhere I've been in my life. So
no, well, you haven't been to the one corner of this country where they are, which is in Northern California, where the capital of the state is, which is odd. But they're a team that's going to like make talking about this and really betting futures on this division, I think, more interesting than it might have otherwise been. Like, not that it's not an interesting conversation in general, who's going to win the division, but there's a bit of a toss-up aspect to it, and we'll get a bit more into it. But I also just wanted to note on the stark difference between the division we just talked about, which was the Southeast, where we were like, let's talk about which team might be the worst in the NBA. And now we're going over to the probably, we can all assume, the best division in the NBA, especially with probably the Sixers taking a step back.
A really interesting market. I just to kind of give a lay of the land, I have every team in this division projected between 42 and 48 wins. So like, it would actually be a pretty fun market to create. Like, who will have a better record, the Southeast Division winner or the last place team in the Pacific? Because I would make that around a pick, honestly. So
that is, we should bring that up to somebody on the sports book.
Bet. Yeah.
Did you take the Atlantic Division to have an overall better record than this one?
I did. I think this division. So that's one we talked about in our first divisional podcast, the Atlantic Division. This Pacific Division is favored to have the best cumulative record on DraftKings at like minus 300. And we actually faded them a bit and played the Atlantic over them for reasons we'll talk about. So why don't we jump into the teams real quick?
Yeah, for sure. So we got obviously Suns, Lakers, Warriors, Clippers, Kings. And that's the order as well for how they're all favored and projected with their odds for winning the Pacific, right? Suns, Lakers, Warriors, Clippers, Kings. And the Lakers and the Warriors are basically around the same odds at plus 350 for the Lakers on DraftKings, plus 360 for the Warriors. Let's start with the Suns. Just a few bets for the Suns that you could make if you wanted them to win this division. It's plus 145. The conference for them is plus 350, second behind Denver there. And if you wanted to take them for the chip, just these sort of core bets for them, it's plus 650 for them to win the entire thing. So there's plenty more out there, obviously, with the just myriad of bets that you can make in different kind of creative markets, especially on DraftKings and FanDuel. Where do you start with this team, though, if you were looking to play some a future on them?
Yeah, I think this is a team that I'm projecting right around 48. So I think their win total is around 50, 51. I'm not playing this win total anyway. It's just not a big enough discrepancy for me. I think this is really one of the most talented teams in the league when you think about Beal joining them. And that just gives them like these offensive capabilities where like across the floor, even Nurkic is great in the short world distributing. So like the addition of him, I think, makes them a really complete offensive team. Like they can beat you from each area. One thing I'm really looking for from this team early in the season that will guide like the way I am playing them is their 3-point frequency. This was a team that like just did not shoot enough threes last year to be competitive in the playoffs. And they were a pretty a pretty clear fade in that series against the Nuggets because they just got outmatched basically, and they're settling for all these mid-range jumpers. Obviously, Beal coming in and Chris Paul coming out, they have the chance to change that shot profile in a way that I think could really benefit them. And we'll see if Vogel will push him in that direction. I am playing Devin Booker as one of my MVP bets at plus 2,200. That's about the only bet I have on this team. And the reason and the thinking behind that is I think this team has a really better than 10% chance of being the best team in the league. I think their upside is really, really large. It depends obviously on like how much they play Durant, how much they play Beal, but and how the role players come in, but with the potential for them to be the best player on the team and Durant resting, there's I think this could be the year that Booker just overtakes Durant as the best player on this team, and for that reason, I'm playing. I think he has a better than 5% chance of winning MVP this year.
Of winning MVP. Yeah. And so right now, if you were to play him to win MVP, you can still get it. I believe you got it at 24 to 1. It's 18 to 1 on DraftKings right now. Probably seen a bit of action on him at this point as we get closer to the season. Man, we're already like 2 weeks away. The interesting thing about them that I'm wondering about is, are they going to be a try-hard team at all? Because between Beal, I'm not gonna throw Booker in the mix of guys that have that many miles on their knees, especially because he only played the 1 year at Kentucky. But yeah, I mean, why would you worry about playing like, having all these guys around, having Bradley Beal in and of itself, it's not just insurance for KD and obviously just incorporating one of the best offensive lineups in the league. It's also like, just take a load off KD. We have Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. We'll probably be able to get 50 to 60 points from them. So we're good, on a nightly basis. So like, but Beal's never gonna have been in an offense where there's like two other dudes who can shoot as well as him and get to the rim as well as him, and distribute better than him. So yeah, do not sleep on that dude at all. Like I think there was a lot in Washington that he just was over for a couple years. We didn't obviously getting the contract helps a lot, but I still think that now the winning comes into play for the sort of twilight of his career as he starts to enter it. So yeah, not to go on a rant about them in that sense because it doesn't really lead me to make any more bets other than like I love to talk about the conference seeding bet, and that was the last thing I'll throw at you before we move on because it's at 3.5, and I don't know what you do with that because I don't think there is a team that you just automatically think is better than them in the division, and then after that you're really just talking about the Nuggets in my opinion, right? Like I don't even think anybody else at the top of the Southwest is worth banking on as a better team than them. So under 3.5, the juice down to minus 140, but not worth it or not worth it at this stage.
I think it's just hard to tell. To your point, like how aggressive will they be in managing Durant's minutes? The bench has some pieces, but obviously, and I think they did some interesting things with Nasir Little in there. I think Grayson Allen will help them. Gordon will help them. So but they'd still lose a ton if he was out. So I think I'm not playing that. I think that number's about right for me. But I do think they have a ton of upside, and it all the thing I'm looking for them is like 3-point frequency.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's crazy to me that they had the fewest amount of made threes in the playoffs last year as a team. Like you said, they were just forced to step in and play a different way, especially with Chris Paul. Let's move on to the team that's projected to come in second, just barely ahead of the Warriors, which is the Lakers. Very interesting team there as well. If you want to talk about them for the division, it's plus 350. For them to win the conference is plus 650. Not that great. That's the third best odds. They are right behind the Suns. And then the champs, if you want to take them that's double that. It's 12 to 1 for them to win the whole thing. What's their ceiling and what's their floor? Because assuming health, what's their ceiling? Like good health, what's their ceiling and floor?
I think the floor for this team is you get 50 games out of LeBron, 50 games out of AD. The role players do what they're supposed to do, and they are comfortable going into the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed, getting a home playing game, just like they have, I think, the past couple of years now. The ceiling, on the other hand, is you get big steps up from the guys they brought in last year. Reeves plays really well. Gabe Vincent's a good addition. Rui steps up again. They have a pretty good supporting cast, and I think it's reasonable to expect good things out of all those players. And you have a wild card in Christian Wood, who, before his fall from grace in the past couple of years, has shown that he can be a really efficient scorer. And I think putting him around LeBron is having a big guy who can shoot it and stretch the floor. I think there's some things to like about the potential of this team. Just regular season wise, I don't necessarily want to bet on the Lakers in the regular season.
Right, right. Yeah, there's some good things to like about this team, period. Regular season wise, comma, not sure I want to do it. Because what I heard you say was there's some good things to like about this team regular season wise. And I was like, no, 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 that's not what you mean. But to clarify, yeah, I was putting punctuation in there for you, for everyone who's listening, so that you know what we're mean here is regular season wise, there's not much to love. I like the angle of Christian Wood not only being alongside LeBron and the style of plays meshing well. I like the idea of Christian Wood being around LeBron, and that meaning that you'll get the best version of Christian Wood without the attitude issues, without the diva aspect of things where he just wants to shoot threes, get offensive rebounds, and that's the extent of it. Because if
Right.
he's a liability on defense, then he doesn't really fix any sort of issues with AD missing at least 25 to 30 games this
Right.
season.
Yeah. No, and I think Darvin Ham is a really good coach that
Also
seems
that.
to get the most out of his players, and he's someone
Well said.
who could have positive influence on Wood. I think 80-1 at most improved player is one I'll keep an eye on just as the season tips off. If he's getting 25 minutes and having 16 and 10 production, maybe even a 6-man bet. I'm not placing that right away. I need to see more, but that's one I have my eyes on. I'm playing their win total under 46.5, but it's a smaller bet for me. Um, I just I think they have some pieces that if things go right, this could be a really dynamic team. I just think it's more likely than not that they manage minutes. And
Yep. Yep.
that's a tough division. It's a tough conference.
So breaking them down as a 16 game team is what when I talk about the difference between a playoff, they're them as a playoff team and them as a regular season team. When you think of them as a 16 game team, because you need to win 16 to win the chip in the playoffs, do you think there's any value in betting on a futures bet once it comes to the playoffs, like championship, or make it to the conference finals, or what have you? Do you think there's any benefit in doing that now when you say you get it at 12-1 for them to win the chip? My thinking is, well, let's say they win 45 games.
You'll get
For
it.
them to win the chip around the time of going into the playoffs, do you think it would still be around 12 to
I
1?
think so. I mean, it was
Yeah.
around a lot of people I know got them like 50-1 to win the West, like around the deadline last year when they made all those moves, right? And I don't think you'll necessarily get that, but if you think about, I don't think that number's going anywhere. And
Yeah.
for me, it's a prerequisite for them to be healthy before I'm placing that bet. So yeah, small on their
Well
win total under, and maybe looking out for some Christian Wood futures if he meets his potential. But that's it for me on them.
Yeah, and you're always going to lose some juice betting on the Lakers in any capacity because they're the Dallas Cowboys or right the Yankees. Like you're just not going to get the value with public perception, global public perception being what it is around a team like the Lakers, Cowboys, Yankees, etc. So yeah, there's nothing for me there because I think the value when you look at a team that you're willing to not fade, but you don't buy them as a strong regular season team, and then you think that they're still capable of winning 16 games in the playoffs, then there's no point in betting on a long future for them this early, right? Because like you said, the value that number is not going anywhere. The value's not going to drop. If anything, it's going to rise. And the problem is the problem would be injuries if you don't wait to find out if that's going to happen with them, because that's what it's entirely predicated upon. So third place team in terms of expected wins and their odds to win this division are the Warriors, a team that I've covered now, living not too far from them for a long time, that I know very, very well and am highly familiar with. If you've watched preseason games, I know I'm talking about preseason. If you've watched it, Chris Paul's game, which by the way, if you know hoop, you know that it translates to playing well with pretty much anybody. He could play with James Harden. He can play with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, right? Because he's the best second fiddle to James Harden I've ever seen, and that's all I needed to know that Chris Paul is a malleable top 3-4 point guard of all time in the NBA. So what do you do with his addition? Obviously, the loss of Jordan Poole, not even really needing to worry about that. The other additions to the team, I think, are like valuable in some ways. I don't know that they made that many. I had it pulled up. Let me grab it again. I know that's not good television, everybody. But the other, yeah, there's really nobody. That's why it's really just Corey Joseph and Dario Saric, and I like a tall guy that can shoot and be versatile like Saric for them. But it's pretty much the same team, except for also I would argue they're getting Wiggins back. What he played like 38 games last season, 50 games. So what do you do with this team? Looking at win totals and any other markets that might be enticing.
Yeah, I'm on the under for them. I project 40, 43. The total's 48 and a half. Yes, Wiggins was hurt. I don't think he makes. I think he may be worth, like, him missing half the season is maybe worth 1 or 2 games. I think
Interesting.
Paul could bring them something, but he's old. I certainly am not of the opinion that he's going to ruin their entire system. This is just a team that's getting older, and it's hard to see them getting better. If they had 46 expected wins, again, even if you assume that they're not going to get any worse with age, which, projection models would probably predict that they're going to be less effective as these guys enter their mid-30s. It's still like I can't get to 48 and a half. So I'm on the under with them. I still think they're a threat. They'll always be a threat as long as they have Curry and Draymond and Clay. I just don't. I don't see the upside in the regular season with this team. I'm on under 48 and a half.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to it, to be honest, because what we're talking about is just like a little bit of unknown with the regression that you're going to get from the four of them between Draymond, Clay, Steph, and Chris Paul. Not really worried about Steph, to be honest with you. He's definitely Ray Allen-esque in his workouts and his meal habits and all the rest of it. So Chris Paul, by the way, interestingly, doesn't even eat like cooked food, so I'm sure he'll still be all right. but either way,
Father
between
time,
all of
though,
them,
man. That's
Father Time, undefeated, dude. We pushing 39, man. Yeah, at that point. So, and I don't know what they're gonna get from everybody else. It's not worth it at this point. We'll start to talk about them when we get to the middle and end of the season. But I agree with you that there's nothing there. That's the issue with the top three teams of this division. Breaking down futures for them is highly dependent on who's playing, how often they're playing, and the fact that they're all just really making sure that they're ready for the regular season.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue to the Clippers, because it's the same thing. You want to give.
I should have waited to say that for there's only one team in this division that you're like, hey, there's some regular season try hard going on out there and sack those boys. So with the Clippers, what the fuck, man? What do you want me to do with this?
Nothing. I don't have anything, man. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know how many games Kawhi and PG are gonna play. I'm not going to tell you if they're going to acquire Harden. This is just to stay away from me, man. There's like. At some point as a bettor, you have to be humble enough to say that you don't know. And I don't know with them. And I don't think anyone who doesn't know those guys personally knows either. I mean,
dude, we're talking about Kawhi.
Yeah.
God, good luck if you know what's in Rebound Man's mind. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, board man gets paid.
Exactly. He gets paid and he eats apples. So what are we doing with the Kings then? Because this is a team we were trying to talk about before we came on air. Yeah. Like I hit them 9-1. I believe we talked about that briefly before we started even going through these divisions.
Yeah.
So they're still 9-1 for the division. Is it worth a little snag?
I think that's worth a bet, right? I mean, we talked about all these teams being, I have the Suns projected for 48 as first in the division. Sacramento won 48 last year. And had and that was a true 48. It's not like they got lucky in a bunch of close games. Their expected wins were 48 too. They have the same team. Keegan Murray, your boy, Summer League, best player of Summer League history. He's gonna develop. Fox will develop. It's hard. It's just hard to make that around 10-1. To your point, they're not gonna rest guys. They're going to play guys the entire time. They're going to play guys big minutes the entire time. And I just think this is, if I'm not betting their regular season wins over, because I just don't see much value there. But I think the price for the division should be much closer to plus 500. I don't think
Yeah.
there's that big of a gap between them and any of these other teams in the regular season.
I think there's probably something to the idea that if you're a little bit less of or more of an NBA casual, you're still looking at the Kings and going
Right.
like, well, I mean, that's the Detroit Lions of the NBA, so they can't be good, and you don't necessarily know that like, Kevin Herter's 25. You
Yeah.
think he didn't get better between age 24 and 25 when he's coming into this season? Same concept even with I mean, De'Aaron Fox isn't exactly old. Malik Monk is still young too. Another guy I was thinking of. So they're still like guys on the upswing going into their like mid to late 20s when you start to be your best self.
Yeah, and I think the Vesnikov pickup, he was the
I'm here for
EuroLeague
it.
MVP last year. Like that's could be a really good pickup, more than a lot of guys who most fans have heard of. Davion Mitchell. I mean,
I love that.
it's just a good regular season team.
Yeah. So a good bet is the 9-1 on the
Yeah, I
division.
think you can take that down to
Um,
8-1. It's just it essentially is, do the Suns rest guys? I don't think any other team in this division has a ceiling of 50 wins because they're not going to play guys on back to backs. And
yep.
this team could just have the same season as last year and win around 50 games, and they're right in the discussion. So yeah, at 8-1, 10-1, I think it's good. It's a good long shot to have. That I think is mispriced.
Yep. I would play the over 47.5. If you want to do an alt win, you can get it at plus 185 on DraftKings for them to win 48 games once again. They had 48 or 49 last year.
Yeah, one or the other. But so here's the
Yeah.
thing, like I would much prefer to get a price that's, significantly larger at plus 900, because if they beat that all win total, I think they have a really good
Right.
shot at the division. I just
That's a really good
don't
point.
see a tail outcome for the Clippers to win more than 50. I don't see a tail outcome for the Lakers or the Warriors to win more than 50. I think the only team in that division that they're competing with that can win more than 50 is Phoenix, and there's a lot of paths where they don't. So
Well said. Yeah, the Phoenix does scare me still from the standpoint that one of my most recent memories of Kevin Durant was rattling off like 19 straight wins or something for the Nets, or like
yeah,
going 19-1 with him in the lineup before he went down and then eventually left the Nets. So yeah, Kevin Durant in the regular season is about as unstoppable of an offensive force as the NBA has seen in its existence. So not as many bets in this division, obviously, as we might have had in some other ones, because there's just a little bit more value going on for other divisions where there wasn't as much parity. And let's just be frank, there's 4 teams in this division with all of their superstars on the other side of 30. and then you look at Kawhi, rebound man, and everything else. Yeah, board man and everything. So I guess we'll call it for this one, man. We'll get on to the next Northwest division. Talk about those Nuggets. I think your adopted team being out there in Colorado,
right.
and figure some other stuff out. Yeah.
Sounds good, Josh. Thank you, man. Great time.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
Um,
Always, dude. Yep. We'll be coming back. We'll get Eddie back on too, right?
yep, that's the plan.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, continue to stay lucky out there, and until we talk to you next, happy betting.